So welcome everybody this morning. I'm Phyllis. I'll be the facilitator. I'm the person who picked the topic. And I'm going to read the current slogan, and then I'll read the land acknowledgement, which I have in front of me. So Eracism is the slogan of the group Erace, which was formed in New Orleans in the summer of 1993. We seek ways through person-to-person communication to show that we are committed to treating fellow human beings of all colors with love and respect. Join us. We acknowledge that what we know as the United States is the traditional territory of indigenous peoples. Members of our group today are on the lands of the...
But I'm now I'm in.
Sorry. Of the Tonkawan, Lipan, Apache, and Comanche in Austin, the Chitimacha in New Orleans, the Creeks and Cherokees in Atlanta, the Lenape and Piscataway in Maryland, the Wampanoag and Nipmuc peoples in Boston, and the Coahuila and Mojave in Riverside County, California. We thank their ancestors for being stewards of these lands through generations, and we state our intention to continue that stewardship now and into the future. So I'm going to go through our process of our meetings and remind everybody that this is a conversation that is meant to be held with respect and no name calling, no personal attacks. Most of you here know that if you want to get on the list, you put up one finger. I recommend holding it up for a while, making sure I see it, moving it maybe slowly, making sure it's in the frame that you see of yourself. If the person who puts their finger up, they have 2 minutes to speak. If you want to ask a clarifying question of that person, put up 2 fingers and I will let you jump in and ask them your clarifying question. A clarifying question does not go off the topic of what they said or ask them to expound on any ideas. It's simply for you to ask them to clarify a word, a phrase that they have brought up in their 2-minute time, such as, can you explain what you meant by, even if you didn't understand a word, they said, I didn't understand a word, I didn't catch a word, things like that. They don't require the asker to make any speech. And if a clarifying question that's asked is not actually a clarifying question, I'll invite that person to get on the list to make their statement. We don't interrupt the speaker. We keep ourselves on mute when we're not the ones speaking, so that background noises don't interrupt. Although I have to stay unmuted, so you might hear my cat, which is why we were talking about cats in the very beginning. I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves, and then I will say a little bit of why I brought the topic, and then I will open the list. So I'm going to start by order of how I see people on the screen, and Louise.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Louise, and I am in Austin now, but I've been part of Erace for over 2 decades, firstly in New Orleans and then now in Austin, Texas.
Great. Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa Roberson. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I've been coming for a couple of months. Thank you.
Welcome. Marla.
Good morning. My name is Marla. I'm in the New Orleans area, and I've been coming for the last several years.
Nancy.
Good morning, I'm Nancy Moore. I'm located in New Orleans. I have been coming to Erace since June of 2007.
Stanton,
Stanton, Austin, Texas. I have been coming for about 6 months now.
Marva,
Good morning. My name is Marva. I'm located in New Orleans, and I've been coming to race post Katrina.
Nora,
Good morning, everybody. I'm Nora. I'm in Austin, and I've been coming for maybe almost a year. And thank you.
thanks. Leonetta,
Good morning, everyone. I am in New Orleans, and I, like Marva, have been a part of Erace since post Katrina.
Marion,
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marion Lagarde here in New Orleans. I've been attending the Erase discussion since 1993. It's good to see everybody. Looking forward to the discussion this morning.
Larry,
Good morning. I'm Larry. I've been attending Erace since about 1995 and glad to be here this morning.
Cindy, you're not unmuted. There you go.
Thank you. It keeps remuting. I've tried to unmute it. You keep unmuting me back, or somebody does. Anyway, Cindy Morris, we've been involved for about 4 or 5 years. I don't know exactly. I will check one day. We live uptown New Orleans, right by the river. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was remuting you because I could see that you were having some difficulties and there might be background talking. So I do
Well,
that.
but there isn't.
There was. I could see Bill came to your computer and you were talking. But we ask everybody to stay muted, as you know, when they're not being called on to speak. Francie?
Hi, I'm part of the Austin contingency here, and I joined probably about 2 years ago, thanks to Louise. And it's really windy here. It's about to blow down all my political signs.
I'm glad you're here this morning. Bill?
Bill will be right back.
Okay. Glenn? Glenn Abdullah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I've been having trouble.
You're showing, okay. You were showing muted while we could hear you. This is weird. Now I can't hear you.
Well, every time I touch the screen to unmute my mic, then it goes off.
Okay, we can hear you now. Don't touch anything.
All right.
Did you?
Oh yeah, well, yeah. My name is Glenn, and looking forward to this meeting this morning.
Thank you. I forgot to say that sometime before the end, I will let you know when the list is closed, so that we'll have enough time to do the wrap up and hopefully finish the meeting close to 11:30. So I chose this topic. It was sort of percolating. I listened to the democracy-ish podcast, and they interviewed Anthea Butler, and I haven't gotten that book yet, but I intend to. And I thought it was really interesting, and I went looking for some other interviews or information about white evangelical races. And if you Google that phrase, a lot of what comes up has to do with her. So I thought it was including the whole democracy-ish podcast, but it was only a part of it. So I don't know if anybody went looking for the whole thing. It's very good. I listen to it weekly. And I thought the WHYY interview was a sort of a different take with a different audience. And I felt like she's aware of her audiences when she's giving interviews. And she's the, what do they say, chair of religious studies at the University of Pennsylvania. So she's not nobody. And funnily enough, last week, Leonetta made a wish for a topic like this. So here you go. And, you know, I have expressed in the past my concerns that the United States is heading towards a Christian nationalist fascist situation with the Republican Party specifically, trying to get power, and by any means necessary, they'll run anybody they can who they think can get elected. They don't care about their own platforms anymore. So having said that, I will open the list unless somebody thinks I forgot something. I see Teresa. Anybody else? Stanton, Lynetta. Okay, Teresa, go ahead. Bill.
All right, thank you so much. So my first two comments I'd like to make, just kind of a contrast. When they were talking about Herschel Walker being this puppet that they can control, that's the reason, you know, I don't care what he does or says or whatever, as long as he wins the election. And I thought immediately when she said puppet, it reminded me of Spike Lee's movie Bamboozled. If you haven't seen it, now's a great time to see it. It's about, well, part of it is about two Black men dressing in blackface. And I thought that is exactly what this buffoon is. He is a Black man in blackface doing whatever, and it's mostly white people. It's not, you know, most Black people are not Republicans, but, you know, he's doing what they say. And then when you get to Clarence Thomas, I was like, then that's a Black man in whiteface. Because you know, the comment of his, I think it was his mother-in-law who says, oh, he's such a nice guy, you'd forget he's Black. And I've had that happen to me, not trying to be white, but it's this racism that says that if you are smart and you can speak English well, then you're not a Black person. I literally had someone, a co-ed, a white co-ed, tell me freshman year in college, Teresa, you don't talk like a Black person. And I was stunned. I'd never had an insulting compliment before. Back then, we didn't call it a microaggression. But that's the two comments I just want to thank. You know, these two Black men, one is in blackface, the other is in whiteface. And, you know, those were my main two comments. Other, and if I have more time, I'll just say this is the reason I don't, even though I was born Baptist, I've never been baptized, because even as a teenager, usually the time, well, I guess in my family or whatever, somebody will be baptized as a child. I just thought there's so much hypocrisy. I was always this bookish, nerdish, whatever. And I saw the hypocrisy in religion, and nothing to this day, I'm 52, has changed my mind about the hypocrisy in religion. So evangelicals is just to be the religion du jour that we're talking about. I'll stop, but thank you.
Do you want to get back on the list?
Maybe.
Okay, well,
if
let
I
me
have
know.
something different to say.
Okay,
Yes, thank
let
you.
me know if you do. I have Stanton, and then Leonetta, then Bill.
Yeah, I just, if you want a little bit of a Halloween scare in keeping with this topic, last week Frontline did a piece on Michael Flynn and the evangelical movement and their attachment to him and his attachment to them. It's pretty frightening. And the other thing that occurred to me after watching this piece was that there are so many people who are supposedly searching for God, but they've lost their humanity. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Stanton. Next is Lynetta.
Thank you, Phyllis, for picking the subject. I was so excited when I saw it. And first of all, I want to say, I agree with you about the way that the United States is heading. But it's just not the evangelicals, it's the all religions. I'm Catholic, and I'm fighting in my church about the hypocrisy and the racism that's in my church. And it's just, you claim to be a Christian, you holding up the Bible, and what you're doing is not with what's going on in the Bible. And we need to all be careful and watch what's going on with these so-called religious leaders. They are destroying this country. And I've said this before in one of our meetings. We're going to be doing all this infighting, and before you know it, some other country, pick one, Iran, Russia, whatever, gonna come over here and conquer the United States while we fighting among each other about stupid stuff. I think my time's up.
47 seconds
Okay.
left.
Yeah. And it's just racism wrapped in nationalism, wrapped in religion. It's just crazy what's going on with our so-called religious leaders. And it's not just the evangelicals. They just happen to be the ones that get the publications, but it's all of religions that are in the United States. They all have racism at their core.
Can I ask you a clarifying question? When you say all religions, do you mean all Christian denominations?
Yeah, those are ones that I know anything about. I don't know that much about Judaism and Muslims. I don't know that much about them. So I can't accuse them of that. But I do know about the Christian ones. So Lutherans, Catholics, Methodists, them, yes, I can say yes, that's what they're doing.
Thank you. I have Bill and then Greer.
It was a great video, Phyllis.
Larry.
Afterwards, you know how YouTube has related videos on the right side? After we watched Trevor Noah talk about the Fox excuses for Herschel Walker. And it was pretty much the same thing as the video you sent, but he cast it in a more comic mode. And at one point, he had a actress playing the Fox News host, and she said, "Doesn't matter what his kid said, they never met him." But the whole thing reminded me also of Tom Joyner's radio show. They would come up with stupid things white people do, and they would say, "Why do white people do that?" And some of the other cast members would say, "I don't know." So Tom Joyner said, "Let's ask the white man. D, tell us why white people do that." And he would do some kind of explanation like we saw in the video. The evangelical movement, as I said before, abortion was not an issue for them when Roe v. Wade, they thought it was a Catholic issue. But after they got started politicized to fight school integration. And after the schools integrated, they needed a new topic. And so they picked abortion as a new wedge issue. Very hypocritical. I'll have more to say about the video that we watched, but I'm going to defer to now.
Okay. Do you want me to put you back on the list right now?
No, let me listen for a little while.
Okay, thanks. Greer, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. I came in on the tail end of talking about religion. Someone was saying about how they don't find what's good about it. I took a class about multiple religions. I can't say that we touched every religion that exists in the world, but what I found out, the essence of religion is purity. It's only when man taints religion to fit his own need and will and to accomplish whatever goal that man has set, then religion becomes totally opposite of what it's intended to be. And that's exactly what's going on here. And some of the people that I work with at my job, they're like, I call them holy rollers. And I watch what they do. And to say they're holy rollers, I can't see where religion even affects their lives, because they're some of the nastiest people I've met in my life. They hold up God as a shield to stand behind everything that they do that's wrong. Now, mind you, I'm not perfect, but I'm not going around saying, oh, I'm blessed by the lamb or other things like that, and still doing shady stuff. And my comment to some of them are, you know what? The devil goes to church too. That's how he knows who isn't there and is. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greer. Larry is next.
Thank you, Phyllis, for this great subject this morning. Part of our problem is with religion, and especially Christianity, is when we look at people, we look at the flesh, and we try to measure all of Christianity by what we see people do. But in white evangelical racism, what we're dealing with is not anything remotely related to biblical Christianity, as defined by the life, words, crucifixion, death, resurrection, and ascension into heaven, and the promise of Jesus' return. White evangelical racism is not Christian, and it is not evangelical. The word evangelical, as defined, means emphasizing salvation by faith in the atoning death of Jesus Christ through personal conversion, the authority of Scripture, and the importance of preaching as contrasted with ritual. So in our topic this morning, white evangelical racism, what we are dealing with is white mob rule based on a racist concept of white supremacy, disguising itself as white Christian nationalism, when biblical Christianity is neither white nor is it national, but it is designed to be universal. Evil and wicked people have misrepresented the Christian faith down through the years to support their evil intentions. And today, these evil intentions have infused themselves with Donald Trump's so-called Make America Great Again, translated to mean Make America White Again. And this is translated and interpreted as mob rule, wherein there is no reasoning nor rationale to respond to the devastating effects and outcomes that will affect the current political construct as we know it. So as our erase conversations move forward today, it is important that we understand what we are talking about, and biblical Christianity must be on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I've got Louise next, and the list is open.
So I'm an educator, as you all know, and I work with kids. And one of the big things, apart from math, science, language arts, whatever, we try to teach to be a good human. And we're focusing on integrity at the moment. And integrity, basically telling them, do the right thing, even if you're not being, watched or judged, just to do the right thing. And that kind of translates with the way I see it, in my opinion. Most religious people are doing things so they get a reward in heaven or get a reward somehow. Surely you should just do it anyway, right? I don't know. It seems like such a simplistic view, but to me, just do the right thing. Just always be good, Don't expect anything from it. So that always boggles my mind with religion. And I know that's kind of getting off the subject a little bit. So to get back to that, I agree with Larry that they're just using, it's another avenue for these so-called Christians for white power, fear mongering, as we talked a lot about last week. Fear mongering is huge. What else was I gonna say? Oh gosh darn it. I don't know. They're just That's it for now.
Larry had a clarifying question.
Yes, Louise, when you mention good, how do you define doing what's good and who or what sets the standards that's good?
Okay, yeah,
Glenn,
that's
I
a
have
great
you, Glenn.
question. I think everyone has an internal kind of balance of what is right and what is wrong, unless you have some chemical imbalance and something wrong, which probably goes back to your childhood and you were kind of damaged at some point, perhaps. But I think everyone has an integral thing, and it's not just doing the good; it's basically doing it just because. So that was the point: doing it just because, not because of any reward. But yeah, you're right. I guess there's no, someone's standard of good is different from someone else's. But I do believe really integrally inside, we know what we're doing and what is good. I believe. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. Glenn, I've got you on the list. Bill is next, and then you, Glenn. Bill, there you are.
Yeah, sorry.
That's right.
I just, as I did last week, I just want to first agree with Larry. White evangelicals are not Christians. There's a distinction between the misuse of Christianity and Christianity in the Bible. And while I'm not a practicing Christian, my moral compass came from the Christianity in the Bible. I have tremendous respect for that and for people like Larry and others in the group who follow biblical Christianity. We saw the video that we saw has been, I've seen various versions of it. Joy Reid, who I really like, had a great segment on how Herschel Walker was a racist stereotype of a Black man. And that's why Trump picked him. And all these Republicans say, I don't care, we just want the vote. You could put the devil up for Senate in Georgia or anywhere else as a Republican, and they would vote for him. Because they just want the vote. It's totally, in 2020, the Republican Party did not have a platform. They did not have a platform because they had no policy issues to run on. It's just about power. So anyway, I've said enough.
Thanks, Bill. Glenn?
Yes, the Angelical group, they were some of the worst, some of the people who treated us the worst. When integration came, they're the ones who left, and they started their own religious schools. They were the one out there jeering the little children who were trying to integrate the schools. But they really never really had the teachings of Jesus to go by. What they had in the Bible was not the teachings of Jesus. You know, they had some a corrupted teaching of Jesus. Most of it was absence, and they're the ones that support every racist candidate. Because their religion is founded upon that Christ is a white man, and they look at everybody else other than whites as inferior, and they are superior because he was white. That's all I have to say for right now.
Thank you. I have Louise next, and the list is open. Nancy.
I have a very short thing to say, and Glenn reminded me of it, that I think I've said it before. During the slavery times, the enslaved Africans would say the worst slave masters were the so-called religious ones. They were the most cruelest and harsh. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody listened to the second thing that I posted. It's a radio interview with the same person, and that quote, they quoted Frederick Douglass as having said that exact thing, Louise. Nancy is next. Then Larry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's where I got it from, actually, from reading his
Okay.
his.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Nancy.
I don't live in Georgia, and I wish Beatrice was here so that she could kind of tell us what the mood and the tempo is in Georgia. But I, as a Black person, I am insulted that Herschel Walker actually is a candidate, because how stupid do you think I am to vote for someone like that? You're just going to put a Black person in front of me that has all this baggage with him, is inarticulate, and because he says that he believes in the ban on abortion, that I'm going to vote for him. It's insulting to me to think that I would not vote for someone who has everyone's interests at heart, who is far more educated, far more learned in government procedures and things, like Raphael Warnock, and switch my vote from him to Herschel Walker. It's insulting. It is extremely insulting. And I wish that Beatrice was here to give us, the feeling in Georgia of how people actually feel about that.
Thank you,
That's it.
Nancy. Next is Larry.
You know, our greatest tragedy, one thing Martin Luther King said, that the ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but the appalling silence by the good people. And the Protestant church came about back during the Reformation period because of the unbiblical practices of the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope. So that's how we get all of our Protestant churches now, Methodist, Baptist, or whatever. And again, if we bring up the word Christianity, it has to be biblically based. Because if we're not talking about biblical Christianity, that was taught by Jesus and then by the apostles in the New Testament, then we're not talking about Christianity. A Ku Klux Klan could carry a cross and burn it on the front lawn, but what biblical principle is he basing that on? So there has to be a biblical principle if we say we're Christians. And one of the tragedies in today's Christian faith is that Christianity has been corrupted. It has turned into a money-making machine, prosperity, how much God want to bless you and God want this and that for you. That is not Christianity. The Christianity of the Bible is about lifting up the name of Jesus and his salvation powers. And everything else falls in line. And then our character changes. When our character changes, then we be concerned about the souls of men and our fellow man. And yes, we strive to do good. We strive to correct wrongs.
You want to get back on the list, Larry?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the bell go off.
That's okay. So it'll be Teresa. Anybody else? Oh, you have a clarifying question for Larry, Louise?
Yes. So if you haven't been saved, do you not go to heaven?
That's a very good question when we get into Christian doctrine. And my own response to that, as my own response has always been, is that the words of the Lord, as we know him as Jesus, make the determination. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. And so all I can do is quote scriptures to you. And if one could find another way to get into heaven, then, that would be on the table for discussion.
I intend on finding a back door into the.
Ain't no back door.
Okay, thank you both. I've got Teresa, then Larry, then Greer. Oh, and Leonetta, sorry.
Okay, so I ran down to get my little I voted sticker. I always like to vote the first day of early voting, since we were talking about voting and who you're going to vote for. And it's interesting. This was my first time in a long time voting in North Carolina. I lived in Austin, Texas for 14 years. And, before I went to vote on Thursday, I asked my parents, I said, oh, do I need a driver's license or whatever? Because every state has its own little special hoop. And my mother's like, you don't even need to show anything. And I thought, I'm not going to say what I thought, but it's like, boy, Texas tries to make it as hard as hell. And I was thinking, I will never move to Georgia because they really target Black people. And you know how I joked, even though it wasn't a joke, that I was an incognito in Austin. So it's like, oh yeah, just show my driver's license. They can't tell I'm Black anyway. You couldn't tell by my name that I'm Black. So I just felt like I kind of slept under the radar. But here in North Carolina, just show up. As long as you are registered, you don't have to do, no photo ID, nothing. It's like, boy, Texans would never even consider not having that extra hoop or extra thing to jump in. So it's not just that Republicans will vote for somebody that has an R beside their name, but in red states, and North Carolina is hanging by a thread of being a blue state, they really want to discourage people from doing it. And in 2020, they shot themselves in the foot in Georgia because they badmouthed absentee ballots so much that the older Republicans, who are like the ye olde faithful voters, did not vote by absentee ballot. That's why you got 2 Democrats. So that campaign, that believing the hype or whatever, that I think helped played. And I also read another article about how when Trump goes to stump for his candidate, it really motivates Democrats to come out. So that's when you talk about the ire of, I forget who made the comments, like, how dare you think I'm going to vote for Herschel Walker just because he's Black or whatever. It has the opposite effect. And it's amazing to me how Republicans haven't thought about how polarizing some of their so-called Republican leaders or heroes or candidates are to Democrats, or people who are, I won't say just Democrats in general, because I know there's more than just 2 parties. And boy, I keep praying for rank choice. However we can get that on the ballot so we can end the 2-party system, I am all about it. I know that's kind of off topic. We were talking about voting, and I had just done it. I hope everybody else does it soon.
Thank you. Do you want to get back on the list?
Maybe.
Okay,
if
let
I'm
me know.
motivated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Larry, you're next.
One of the difficult things we've had relative to the Christian faith in America, in the first commandment that God gave of the 10, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images, and thou shalt not bow down to them, nor serve them. When we talk about a white Jesus, we're just talking about how somebody viewed Jesus. If they was a Roman, they were European, they would draw pictures in the likeness of a European. If they were from Africa, he would be Black. If they were from Chinese, he would look like a Chinese. But the danger there is any depiction of Jesus goes contrary to the word of God. He's not a black Jesus, a white Jesus. He's universal. We cannot see color when we talk about Christianity. We just cannot. It's no such thing as white church and black church. We all supposed to be one. And that should be the struggle of the Christian faith. And Christianity was all over Africa. And so when the enslaved were brought to America, many of them came from Christian nations. And it's just sad that we are where we are. There must have been something powerful about it if the slaves kept that faith in the cross of Christ. There had to be something powerful about the word of God. And the bottom line is, what does the word say? See, if we try to reason and give philosophy and opinions and stuff, we go back, what does the Bible say? Because we're talking about biblical Christianity. People have been turned off from Christ because of what they have seen in fallible human beings, the mistakes that they've made, the errors that they've made. But when we go back to the word, the Bible itself, only then can we get a true picture of what we mean by Christianity.
I have a clarifying question, Larry.
Yeah.
What language do you think one needs to read the Bible in to get the true meaning of what was originally intended?
Well, I mean, what we're dealing with here relative to the Old Testament, it was written mostly in Hebrew with a sprinkling of Aramaic. And then around 400 BC, the Masoretes, a Jewish scholarly group, translated it into the Greek language. And so in the New Testament, it was written primarily in Greek. And then for a period, it was locked up in Latin. And the Roman Catholic Church was the only one allowed to read the scriptures and interpret the scripture. But during the Reformation period, when the printing press was printed, and then the Bible began to be translated into other languages. And so we have what we call the English version of the Bible. I don't know Greek, I don't know Hebrew, and I don't pretend to. But there were 47 scholars, I think, that were commissioned by King James, I think, of England, to translate the Bible into what's called the King's language. It wasn't King James who translated the Bible, but 47 scholars. But there were other English translations before the King James Version. So since I speak English, then I read an English translation.
Thank you. I've got Greer, then Leonetta, Stanton, and Louise. Anybody else? Okay, Greer, you're up.
Now they chose, and evangelicals are supposed to be anti-abortion, but they're not anti-abortion when it comes to Black people having abortions. So basically, he's their poster boy. He was like, well, we can let this slide because you just killed the Black baby. And with abortions, they want to make our community the face of abortions. But yet our death rate isn't exceeding our birth rate. So my question is, how do those numbers up? Because abortion was made illegal because white women were having abortions, to the point of where the white community's birth rate was exceeded by the rate. And I want to sort of back on what Reverend Ladd said. Yes, the image of Jesus that everybody wants to sell, even in the movies, is a white Jesus, blonde hair, blue eyes, which is actually a depiction of Cesare Borgia. But it's so funny that it's so deep down that even when missionaries go to Africa or other places where the vast majority of the population is of color, they bring white Jesus. So my thing is, wouldn't you get more converts if you brought a Jesus that looked like the people that you're trying to convert, but in your, it's so deep that Jesus is, that you can't even let go just to get or converts. That's a deep-seated racism. You can't see Jesus outside of who you are, and you're bringing Jesus to a community of color. Incredible. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was almost perfect timing. Cindy, you have a clarifying question? You have to unmute.
I'm fascinated with what Greer just said. How do you think
Bill.
white theologians have put together the idea of the Black Jesus, the white Jesus, and they still came up with a white Jesus? That makes no sense to me. Are they being just totally irrational? What do you think?
I think for
Larry.
them to think outside of themselves, it would cause such mental schism.
Yes, yes.
That they wouldn't be able to deal with it. It will break down the foundation of their very belief, and they would have to go to the beginning of religion and work forward to come to reconciliation with that belief. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read who I've got on the list. So y'all tell me if I miss anybody. Leonetta, then Stanton, Louise, Teresa, Bill, and Larry. Okay. Leonetta.
Yes, I just remembered I did not talk about what Teresa brought up. I wanted to let her know that the same thing happened to me. I went to the people that live in New Orleans. I went to Archbishop Chappelle High School. I had a class of 320 classmates, and it was just 2 Black girls in my class. And several times there was like, oh, I can't believe I was told you don't act like them other people. I asked, what other people? You know, I said, no, I don't know who these other people are you talking about. Oh, other Black people. So I experienced it too. I didn't know that's what I was experiencing, but I just wanted to let you know. And also, I just wanted to ask the Reverend that this has been my take on other Christian religions in the United States, that these pastors go into the Bible and pick out things out of context and preach on them to justify their views and the hate that they have. As y'all all know, I'm a social worker and I deal with domestic violence. I've had several women that have come to me, their husbands or boyfriends have beat them quoting the Bible of why they're doing what they're doing to them and the abuse that they do to them. And they're quoting the Bible. So it is like you said, Reverend, that they're not, it's not on Christian values. It's people are manipulating what's in the Bible and using it for their own purposes. I think that's it. That's it. My time is up, right, Phyllis?
9 seconds. You're close to.
I'm done.
Thank you. Stanton, you are next.
Yeah, I don't want to get this too much into a discussion of theology, but the terms biblical Christianity makes me a little nervous as a gay man. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean to me in my life and where I fit in that world view of biblical Christianity. Kind of piggybacking on what Leonetta just said, where women are treated in a subservient position to their husbands because of quote unquote what's in the Bible. I know the Bible has, as we all said, been interpreted by men and women, but I'm not sure that I even like the classical biblical text, because there is a lot of stuff in there that is not necessarily conducive to where I am in this society and a modern world, and what I would like to consider a more humanistic approach to life as opposed to a biblical approach to life. Thanks.
Thank you, Stanton. Next is Louise.
Well, again, to jump off what Larry was saying about, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I thought you said that Christianity was such a great deal that even the slaves converted. You know, it must be so marvelous that the slaves converted. I'm pretty sure they were kind of whipped into that and forced into that to be able to do this, that, or the other. I'm sure it wasn't like, ooh, this is a magnificent religion, we must leave ours alone and join this one. I just don't think so. And that can be the same for the native indigenous people who, you know, were whipped and beaten if they use their own language or use their own their own religion. So I'm sure they didn't think, yes, we're going to convert. They were whipped into it and forced into it. So I don't know. I'd like to dispute that theory there. And the Constitution, I equate with the Bible. It was written in a very long time ago when things were very different, when white men ruled the planet, and it just doesn't work with today. So however you translate the Bible, it's still going to be misogynistic, and as Stanton says, you know, it's very against all kinds of peoples. So there's that. And there was one more thing, and I can't remember what it was. Anywho, that's it for now, I guess.
Okay, let us know if you remember.
Thanks.
Next is Teresa.
Okay, first I just want to say this. When you guys were talking about white Jesus and black Jesus or African Jesus, you reminded me of the song Chocolate Jesus. If you've never heard that, Google it, look it up. I think even Tom Waits does a version of Chocolate Jesus. Anyway, just had to, my mind goes that way. But on the topic of abortion and why it was overturned, the fiction writer in me thought, I wonder what would happen if all of a sudden white women started giving birth to mixed race babies. Would we get Roe v. Wade back or some version of this? And, you know, of course, I also think what would crack down is, and I can never think of this word, and I mean, I can think of the word, but I can never pronounce it because I think it's just a horrific concept, but miscegenation. I think I'm saying it right.
Miscegenation?
See, I never want to say that word. That's why I always say mixed race, but it's officially called again
miscegenation.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say, but
Mixing
it's just
races,
like yeah, but it's just like I think it's almost just like that one word, and I think it was called draptomia or something, but it was the disease of slaves running away. And I was like, are you effing crazy? You're making a disease up just to explain why somebody doesn't want to be enslaved. And it's kind of just like mixed race. I'm not even going to try to say the word again. But that was kind of in my mind too. It's just like, wow, I wonder what would happen if white women, and I always, and Nora knows this, I make this kind of tongue-in-cheek statement. I said abortion is in danger. This was before Roe v. Wade, because you white women aren't having enough children. That's the problem. You know, the rest of us have to suffer because white women are not having enough children. And then I thought, I wonder if more white women had mixed race children, could we get, but what would happen is more men of color would be targeted. I already know the answer, or I think I know the answer. I don't think that this society would tolerate white women having just mixed race children without men of color being, you know, brutalized or something violent happening to them. And what's interesting is there seems to be a tolerance when a white man has a woman of color as his partner, but the opposite is not true. If anybody had ever read
sorry, Teresa,
go
you're
ahead.
over your time. Do you want to get back
I'm
on
so
the
sorry.
list?
No, I was just going to recommend White Like Me or something like that, or Black Like Me, whatever that book was.
What?
I'll look it up. I'll look it up and I'll put it in chat. Thank you.
Okay. And if you write a book about this idea you have, I would read it. Okay. Next is Bill, then Larry, and the list is open, and we can take maybe one or two more people before we go into the wrap up.
I just wanted to comment first on two things Teresa said about North Carolina having more open voting rights. I was shocked, but pleased to read. There was a story about a woman whose life was in danger in Tennessee, and her doctors couldn't perform an abortion to save her life. So they put her in an ambulance and drove her to North Carolina where she could get an abortion. I was so pleased to hear that North Carolina is still open to that. Cindy and I are both giving money to Sherry Beasley in the Senate race. Also, what Teresa said about a Black man and a white woman. Someone in a prior discussion here, I think it was Amal, I see joined us, said that if the loving decision where a white man was with a Black woman, that overturned mixed race ban on mixed race marriages. If it had been a Black man and a white woman, it wouldn't have won. And that's something to think about.
That was me, Bill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. You finished, Bill?
No, I wanted to say one more thing. Someone, and I can't remember who's talked about how missionaries go to countries of people of color and they bring a white Jesus. But that's exactly the point, because the Catholic Church co-opted Christianity to promote white supremacy. In this case, Roman supremacy. But Christianity has been used to promote white supremacy and white colonialism forever. And so it's perfectly logical that a missionary would take a white Jesus, because that's what they're trying to promote. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next is Larry and then Greer.
A couple of things I think Louise said and Stanton said that I would just like to reply to. No, Louise, the slaves were not beaten into converting Christianity. As you know, many of the slaves in the beginning could not read English. It was against the law for them to learn how to read. And when they began to read, and they began to read the Bible for themselves, then they began to know that what they had seen coming from the white master was not the Bible, the Christianity of the Bible. And so that's why they adopted the faith of the Bible, the biblical Christianity. And Stanton, you said you had a problem, with biblical Christianity. That's the only book or source that Christianity can be based on. And sometimes when we have a problem with biblical Christianity, especially from your community, it might be taken that, well, Christians hate gays. God doesn't love gays. That's not in the Bible. People have used the Bible to their advantage. God loves all. But there was a time when I used to abuse alcohol, and I abused it seriously. But what broke that habit was my relationship with the Lord and my desire to please him, and I knowing that what I was doing was not pleasing him. So yes, and there are times when we do have to make some changes and say, what does the Lord require of me? What are the standards of right and wrong, moral and immorality? There has to be. I see some hands going up though. Okay, I'll stop now.
You're muted, Phyllis.
Yes, I muted myself for a minute. Louise, ask your question, and then Stanton. And that
Yeah,
we
I
only
think it
get.
might be the same as Stanton. Like, so if they stop committing homosexuality, then they'll be okay. Then they'll be in. Is that what you mean by saying you were an alcoholic and you stopped being an alcoholic and so you're okay now? You're accepted by the Christians? Am I misunderstanding that?
No, I was saved by my faith, not because of whether I drank or not.
Right. And you're saying that homosexuality would be saved. Homosexuals would be saved as well by following Christianity. Is that right?
Salvation is determined by one's profession of faith. Romans 10:9, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus Christ and believe in thy heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved.
Sir, I don't understand.
So I'm sorry, we're having a bit of a back and forth. It sounds like is your clarifying question answered, Louise?
Not really.
Okay, sometimes it can't be. Stanton?
Well, I was going to say, Larry actually just clarified my question. He exactly answered what my question to him was going to be. It's basically what Louise was saying. If you are gay, you can't be saved because you're practicing something that is, in the eyes of the Bible, immoral. So again, this could go on forever, and we're never going to agree. And at the end of the day, I'm not religious, and I could care less what the Bible says about anything, to be honest with you. I live my own moral code, like Louise said earlier. I have my own innate morality, which I think I know the difference from right and wrong in my life. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters to me. So other people's opinions and their religious held beliefs are theirs, and good for them. And I wish them no harm, and I would ask for the same.
Thank you, Stanton. Greer, you are next, and I think we'll go into the wrap up, given it's almost 11:05. After Greer.
Yeah, Bill, I was about to say that I was loving, because loving, that ruling wasn't based on the fact a Black woman was a part of the sin. It was the fact that a white man wanted his right, which was the right of every white man to marry who he wanted. So it didn't matter who it was his right as a white man. And if you look at our laws are written by white men. And when this country began, they were written by white, wealthy men. Even when the law said slaves could not inherit property, it didn't matter. If a white man wanted his slaves or his offspring of having sex with a slave to get property, then his word was bond. Even posthumously, if that word lived on, that's how deep it was. Because all white men wanted their word, even in debt, to ring out as being what they wanted it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greer. Yeah, I remembered it was you that said that. Let's see. We will go into the wrap up, and the people I have who have not spoken, and correct me if I'm wrong, are Marva, Nora, Marion, Cindy, Marla, Francie, and Amal. Is there anybody I forgot who didn't speak? Okay, so Marva, would you like to go first? And in this section, people will have 2 minutes till I tell you it's going to go into the 1 minute.
Good article, good discussion. I think it's how you interpret the Bible, and don't use it for your own agenda. Points where you are influencing other people. God's word is his only word. I choose to follow God's word. Thank you.
Thank you, Marva. Next, I have Nora. Nora, did you want to speak? Okay, we'll come back to you, Nora, if you had to step away. Marion?
I would like to also say that I find it highly insulting, and I consider what some white people believe all Black people are monolithic, to think that they could insert someone like Herschel Walker, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, into the political limelight by thinking, oh, well, you know, these Black people are very sports minded, and if we just throw a Black man into the mix, he'll have quite an influence on any kind of political outcomes. So I find it insulting that they would underestimate the intelligence of Black people. And I don't know if ever there are going to be some among us that cannot see that we're all individuals. And when I say all human beings are individual. And the darkness of your complexion does not relate you to someone unless that person is related to you by bloodline, does not make you the same as somebody else. Marva and I might be Black women, Nancy and I may be Black, we don't think the same or act the same. We are not monolithic, we are individuals. Thank you for this very, very lively topic. It was very interesting listening this morning.
Thank you, Marion. Next, I have Cindy.
I did make a comment on someone else's, but it was
Oh, well,
pretty
you
minimal.
asked a clarifying question, so
Yeah.
that's okay. You still get 2
Okay.
minutes.
Okay. It's interesting to me, this debate about the culture. In reality, I think all of us would accept that the culture is mostly Christian, whether or not we go to church or believe certain denominations' tenets. The culture itself is mostly Christian. And a big piece of that is white supremacy. And I think that's sad that we kind of swallowed the whole thing without protesting. It's not based on the Bible. I had a boyfriend in high school who could find a quote in the Bible to prove anything. It was astonishing. It's all there. But you have to look at the larger tenets of Christianity, if that's what you want to follow. And they have become universal in our country, at least, and most of Europe, I think, as well. But it's larger than a strict interpretation of the Bible. It's kind of sad that we focused on the Bible as much as we have, even not deliberately for me. The tolerance of other people's beliefs is where we may come up short as a culture, in that, yeah, they're okay, they can have their own beliefs, but there's not full acceptance of other religions' beliefs compared to Christianity. So we say it, but we don't really live it. Unfortunately, that's a lot of what's come out of our belief in the Christian basis of our culture. It's discouraging. Enough. Thank you.
Timing. Next is Marla.
Yes, so great discussion. I've really enjoyed watching the video as well. And certainly there's a lot to unpack here. I think I've got dogs barking, sorry. I think one of my biggest issues continues to be that the so-called white evangelicals who speak as being exceptionally moral and, you know, having the best moral compass of all, they very quickly dismiss their so-called morality when it comes to gaining power. And that is my biggest concern for our nation when it comes to white evangelicals, when it comes to just the mixing of Christianity and religion with our day-to-day issues. I think it's very problematic and it's very dangerous. And the fact that 34% of all folks who were surveyed back in 2021 said that they believe we're a Christian nation, that 1 in 5 or even more do not want separation at all of church and state, that 3 or 4 out of 10 parents are okay with prayer in school and teachers praying Christian prayers. I'm extremely concerned for where our country is headed and what it means for body autonomy, what it means for humanity overall. And I just would echo some of the things that Stanton said, the reclamation of our humanity and just considering humanity above all else and not using biblical Christianity as our moral compass. That's it.
Thank you, Marla. Next is Francie.
Well, this was a interesting topic, Phyllis, and I only listened to the it wasn't a video. What do I want to say? To the recording once. I think I need to listen 2 or 3 times before I get it. It's kind of like Cindy, I believe that Christianity and the Bible are very much a part of the morality of the Western world, even though we each sort of adopt our own viewpoints and pick and choose the parts that we think are important. I personally, one day I'm an agnostic and the next day I'm an atheist and the next day there's got to be something going on spiritual. It's very confusing, I believe, but basically I'm kind of at the point similar to Stanton. It's all gotten too easy for people to point to religion as somehow justifying what they want to do anyway. So I don't know. I don't have any answers.
Thank you, Francie. Amal, and then we'll have Nora do her wrap up since she's back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wow, excellent topic. For me, there's a separation between what is biblical and what is Christian. I don't relate those two things as being the same. There's no religion in the Bible called Christianity. I've never seen it. So anyway, but that's another situation. So when you consider the history of the Christian religion and its white supremacy and its white supremacist practices, you have to go all the way back and think, it was the Pope of Rome that ordained the Christianizing of the world, if you will, because these people were savages and they were and they needed to be saved from themselves. So this idea is what promoted the European males to go out into the rest of the world and civilize the people, if you will, because they didn't have salvation. And so slavery ordained by the Christian church. What happened with Native Americans, we have to come and save them because they're savages, and and give them this religion in order to make them better, when it was actually the Europeans who needed the help. Everybody else was living wonderful before European contact, and then after European contact, now we see the world in the chaos that it's in today. So, and this is all a result of the Christianizing of the world. So, and once again, that's not biblical. This is the Christianity doing this, not the Bible. I want to be very clear because those two things are not the same to me. Something that was interesting that I saw, that I heard when I was looking at the presentation on YouTube, is when the lady said that they always have this white woman promoted next to Herschel Walker. And I thought that was interesting because I call it the King Kong syndrome, the big black the big black athlete next to the white woman, and people don't think about the historical sexual innuendos that comes with in the lynching of black men. That was quite interesting to me that was in the presentation. I don't know if a lot of people caught that. So I call it the King Kong syndrome, because a lot of people don't know the original King Kong was actually a mockery of Jack Johnson at that time. And for those who don't know who Jack Johnson is, you can go and look him up. He's not hard to find. So, but great article. Like I said, there's a huge difference between the Bible and Christianity, and a lot of people who don't want to change their behavior when it is pointed out to them biblically that they're doing something wrong. It's not the Bible that's the problem. It's you not wanting to change your behavior. That's the problem, and that's for me and anybody else. So,
Okay, thanks, Amal. I let you go over a little bit.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Cut me off when my time is up. I'm cool with that.
That's okay. Thank you. Nora. We can't hear you. I think you have to unmute your phone. You're on the screen twice.
She's saying that she's
Wait,
having
All right.
trouble.
wait. We got her. We got her.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Well,
right.
I missed half of the discussion because I lost the sound on my
Oh.
new laptop, but so many ideas. I just can't even think of what to say. But as I said in the chat, my head was just kind of reeling because I am a non-believer, and I just don't get what mankind has to do with spirituality or with a higher power. Yeah, and I just can't even be articulate about it. And I feel blessed, and it's so funny using those words. And thank God that I was not raised with a religion. How about that? Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, so that was the end of the 2-minute people. And now we'll go to the 1-minute times, and I have Louise.
Amal, yes, I did notice that the lady standing behind with her hand on his shoulder as if to say, here, this is a tamed, safe black man for your, for you. Yeah, definitely I got that, which is very sickening. This was an interesting, philosophical, pretty deep conversation. It was great. Maybe not the way you wanted it to go, Phyllis, I'm not sure, but evangelicals, Christian evangelicals are evil. If they follow and support someone like Trump, their moral compass is friggin' broken. It's broken because Trump, as we all know, is not a very nice person. So yeah, they're just using religion to further their pockets, agenda, white supremacy, whatever it is. And that is it. Thank you. And may your God go with you.
Thank you. Next is, if I can make the timer stop, is Stanton.
Yeah, just as a response to one of the last things Amal just said about people needing to change their behavior, maybe people need to start changing their thinking. That's it.
Thank you. Larry?
One of the things I wanted to set forth in today's discussion, that the so-called white evangelical Christians, they're neither evangelicals nor are they Christians. And every major religion, whether we be Christians, Jewish, Muslims, there's a foundation in the Old Testament, in the Old Covenant, extending back to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses. And in relation to the statement that no religion in the Bible is called Christianity, to correct that, in the book of Acts, chapter 11, verse 26, it says, and the disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. So that term Christianity was established in the Bible. And if you don't like what you hear, read the book, read the word. That is the determining factor. Don't let your argument be against those who are discussing. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Teresa.
All right, thank you. You know, one thing we didn't talk about, because we can't talk about everything, I just wonder what the founding fathers would say, us trying to rejoin state and church. It seems like no matter how conservative someone is, they always are talking about the founding fathers and really putting the founding fathers up there right with Jesus and God. So the founding fathers did not establish the United States to be a theocracy. They purposely had a separation of church and state. So I would love to, I don't know if this could be a future article, if you guys have already talked about it, but the evangelical influence on the state when the founding fathers purposely said, hey, this is a separation of church and state. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Lynetta?
Once again, I want to thank you, Phyllis, for picking this article. We've had a good discussion, and it touched back on some of the things that we talked about last week. I do think that Herschel Walker is an embarrassment to every African American in the United States. He is such a stereotype, and it is so embarrassing. And I hope that people in Georgia do the right thing. He is, I've met several Black Republicans, and they all have that same, they're a bundle of stereotypes, and they're loved by their fellow white Republicans. And I just don't understand how some of them don't see that what's going on and how they're being used. But I guess that's people go into politics for different things and want different things out of life. So I guess that's probably the answer to that. But thank you so much I love this discussion. And to give everybody an update, my dad's still in ICU and his kidneys are failing at this time.
So sorry to hear that, Lynetta. Next, Nancy. You need to bring up what you texted me. I'd be sad if you don't. What you texted me before the meeting.
About Jenny Thomas. They mentioned Jenny Thomas in the video, and I thought that was hilarious. I have since forwarded the video to other people who would also find it interesting, that reference to Jenny Thomas's body parts. But anyway, I agree with Cindy, Marla, and Francie's with their thoughts. I definitely agree with that. I also feel that there was never, even though the founding fathers wrote about separation of church and state, there has never, ever been separation of church and state, ever. It might be written on paper, but in practicing, it has never been a separation of church and state. And I definitely have all right. Well, I get some more time because I talked about Jenny Thomas.
Yeah, so you have a little bit more.
Okay. Religion, as my friend tells me, she said, Nancy, you have faith in God, you have no faith in man, and that's true. Organized religion has always, number one, supported slavery. When they came up with Stain and Ham and the right to go out there and conquer, these quote unquote uncivilized nations that were doing fine until you showed up with your religion, with your white Jesus. Okay. I think that it does not also support the right to my body autonomy, as Marla stated. I definitely support same-sex relationships. I think there is a continuum of sexuality, and religion needs to recognize that, because there are same-sex relationships in the animal world, and they know absolutely nothing about religion. Okay, and
I'm gonna have to call time.
one last thing.
All right.
And religion has been used to has been weaponized to support agendas, whatever those agendas may be. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Next, I have Glenn. No, you can't have extra time because Nancy did. Where is he? Is he gone? Oh, there he is. Glenn, you moved. You're muted.
Yeah, you know, we've been bashing Christianity, but the world we live in is would be a lot worse a world if we didn't have Christianity in the world that we live in. And there are a lot of people, I don't know how, you know, based on what the Bible gives them, they still come out with a good moral compass. And the world would be a real bad if people. I was raised up on Christianity, and I used to tell little children, you know, when they did something wrong, oh, God is going to punish you. That was at 4 years old. I was saying something like, so it gave me a moral conscience to do to believe in following law, God's law. So so if it wasn't for the good people here, it would be a disaster. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Glenn. I have, who do I have next? Bill and then Greer, and that's the wrap up, and then I'll have some things to say.
Did you say me?
Yes, Bill and then Greer.
I just want to say I don't think we've been bashing Christianity. I think we've been bashing the misuse of Christianity. And the Episcopal Church and maybe other Protestant sects have this practice, but the Episcopal Church ordains openly gay men and women to the priesthood. So the Episcopal Church says that an openly gay person can be a priest. And so that's definitely supporting their right to choose their sexual orientation. So anyway, it was a great video. And I encourage you, if you want to laugh, to watch Trevor Noah talking about on YouTube about the lame Fox News excuses for Herschel Walker. Thank you.
Thank you. Greer? Greer?
Okay, I'm here. I'm gonna just put it like this. Every slave revolt that ever failed because one of us told. They'll always find somebody who wants their meritorious manumission. Even though they've taken the chains off of our bodies, some people still have the chains on their minds. And Herschel Walker is one of those people. I'm not saying that the Republicans or Democrats aren't one and the same, because I mean, the Democrats really haven't been doing much for us as a people. But the Republicans definitely go from a place of hate, from white supremacy. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. And Herschel, definitely, he wants to be with whites so they can have him. Thank you.
So they can what, Greer?
They can have him. The Republicans
they can have him. Okay, thank you. Thanks everybody for your contributions. First, I want to say Louise asked me to put a video in the chat that has nothing, well, not much to do with this conversation, but it's video I posted on my Facebook page that she had seen. And it shows the what actual pregnancy tissue looks like up to about 9 weeks. And it's not what you think. So check that out if you feel so inclined. You can open it and save it in your browser for after the meeting. There were some things in the interview with Anthea Butler on WHYY. They talked about using religion to justify cruelty, and I think that is definitely evident. I'm not sure that if we didn't have Christianity, the world would be a better place. I mean, sorry, that it would be a bad place without Christianity. I think it might be somewhat improved without any extremist religion people. Just there's a whole lot of arrogance, I think, in assuming that what you believe and the book that you believe in is the only correct way to see the world, and that you have the right to impose that on other people. Nobody ever accused Jesus of being arrogant. And if you're following Jesus, you should try to practice some humility and not constantly demeaning other people and their ways of expressing themselves. I'm surprised nobody brought up Billy Graham and how much he sucked. I grew up with a grandmother who watched Billy Graham crusades, and I remember seeing huge stadiums full of people. And there were also some crazy televangelists, in one is specifically in my hometown, Ernest Angley. Anybody ever hear of Ernest Angley? I don't know if he was mostly limited to Ohio. He was crazy. So that's kind of like, we didn't go to any churches of those people, but we did go to a church for a while that was some sort of Baptist church where the pastor brought his teenage son up onto the front of the church to make him repent for listening to rock music on the radio. I mean, what are you teaching people when you teach them to be ashamed of what brings joy in life? I think it's false to say that the only way people got morality was through any religion, and definitely not through Christianity. And the way people, especially white men, have gone out and acted in the world based on them saying they have the right to do so because of being Christians. There's no morals in seeking power. And that's what the current Christian nationalists are doing. They say it out loud. They want Herschel Walker. They don't care anything about his personality. They just want somebody, or his skills. They just want somebody who'll vote the way they want to vote. And I mean, Raphael Warnock is the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist. How does he not win in Georgia? How does Herschel Walker, I hope he doesn't, but it's scary. The prosperity gospel concept was raised, and that stands in contrast to the social justice gospel, or in Catholicism to the preferential option for the poor. If Christians wanted to have some standing and respect, they should be out doing things for the least people in this society and the world, without any expectation of conversion. That is what should be happening. If the church isn't doing that, the church is failing. And one thing that I have always been opposed to is going into a church and seeing there's a Christian flag up on the altar. Any pastor should say, no, we're not worshiping the state in this congregation. I don't know what y'all are doing in the chat right now, but I hope you're listening to me. And I want to say I watched The Handmaid's Tale, and if you want to see what Christian nationalism, fascism can lead to, you should watch that series, because it's scary all the time. And I have a lot of friends, because I went to seminary. I have a Master of Divinity degree. I have a lot of friends who are pastors in non-evangelical churches, And I really think that those denominations, they need to get the brand back, because the brand is being taken over. And you can say those people aren't Christians, but Muslim people try to say the Taliban isn't Muslim, and nobody gives a crap. So you don't get to say Christians, people who say they are Christians are not Christians. If they're using the Bible, which is the book you also support, to uphold their own beliefs in power, then you're going to have to take a stand against those people. And it doesn't matter what color Jesus you bring when you're really evangelizing with swords and bludgeons and violence. You're just showing that they need to be afraid of everything white. In the Bible, Christianity, the Christian sect, was not the separate religion that we have now. It was a sect of Judaism. Most of the people who practiced up until a certain stage were all also identified Jews of their own identification. Jesus never became a Christian. So it's a little ironic to talk about biblical Christianity when all of Jesus's teachings come from his Judaism, not from any belief in his own resurrection and being for all of humanity's sins. And I think it does matter if you're, first of all, I don't have any trust or respect in any scholar that King James came up with to do any interpretation of the Bible. I think you, especially pastors, should learn some biblical languages and learn how to read original texts, learn about the way the translations have come down word by word, and learn where what we now see has been interpreted as, for instance, homosexuality. That word is not what the word is. And if your religion is holding you back from progressing as a people, as a society, you might not be able to see it, but the world is changing, and the world is the way it's always been in some ways. And whoever said there's lots of, I think Nancy, lots of animals that are same-sex loving, that is true. And nature loves diversity. And having male or female genitalia does not mean that you're only going to want to be romantically or lovingly interested in people opposite from you. And gender is a spectrum, sexuality is a spectrum. It's really hard for people who just are really more comfortable with black and white, no pun intended, thinking, binary thinking. Those differences are very, they're hard for them to come to terms with. But, you know, I don't think it's okay to say things like, saying alcoholism is like being gay. This worlds apart. And some people can drink without it being a problem. Some people can't. And some people love other people than you think they should love, and that's none of your business. So I didn't intend to have a sermon. I'm going to have to go back after this and read the whole chat, what y'all been doing. But I want to say thank you for attending and listening to me rant for 15 minutes. And I will stop the recording, and then we will do announcements.